Before I moved into this new home studio, I recorded a live looping session. And at the heart of that session was the TASCAM Model 12. It's a really interesting piece of gear. It's both a mixer and interface. You can record right to this mixer, and it's a MIDI controller. That's a lot all in one. And in this video, I really want to hone in on some of the main features of using this as a MIDI controller for Ableton Live. I'm also going to be showing you how I processed some of the sounds and what plugins I used within Ableton Live. So if you're new to the channel, welcome. My name is TAETRO, your electronic music mentor. Alright, so like I said at the beginning, this is not your average mixer. I mean, on the surface level, it looks like a fairly decent mixer. It's got EQ bands for each track, built-in effects, it's got a screen, even an SD card slot so you can record directly to the mixer, and it's called the Model 12, so it's got 12 ins and outs, including combo jacks on the back, MIDI in, MIDI out, etc. All the things you would expect from a standard mixer. And if you're looking for that teardown of the traditional aspects of this Model 12 as a mixer, this is the wrong video, because I really want to talk about how this takes things one step further and fully embraces the hybrid setup that I think a lot of us have in our home studios. The main one being, of course, that this is also a USB interface. So it's got USB-C on the back, and I'm just connecting to my computer, and automatically right in Ableton Live, it is recognized as my interface, 12 in, 10 out. To be honest, in this day and age, I'm surprised that any mixers are released that are not also audio interfaces. But take this one step further, and not only can I process audio in and out of the Model 12 in Ableton Live, but I can also use this as a full control surface for Ableton Live. So under control surfaces, if I use the Mackie control script, I can just set the Model 12 as my DAW control in and DAW control out. And suddenly I've got a really effective combination of interface and MIDI controller. And in my live session where I was processing guitar, vocals, hand percussion, and a synth, the Model 12 was at the heart of that setup. And here's why. First of all, I had no limitations. I was able to plug 2 microphones in, my Arturia Micro Freak, and my electric guitar. Then within Ableton Live, I was able to set each of the different tracks to receive input from the separated tracks on the Model 12. But that, of course, is just your main function of using it as an audio interface that also has pretty extensive control on each channel. Here's where the MIDI control surface aspect played a big part in using it during the performance. A key aspect of my performances is being able to switch between different instruments, whether those are audio tracks, like my guitar or my synth or my vocals in this session, or those are my MIDI tracks. And using the record button here, I'm actually able to arm tracks individually as I go along, which is very, very convenient. From there, I can mix tracks and fade in, and as you can probably see in this project, there's lots of red dots, which implies that there's lots of automation because this is the actual session that I recorded the live session with. So I've got mix control over every channel. You can see that track 1 obviously corresponds to 1, 2, 3, and so on as we go down the list. I've got transport controls, of course, and a beautiful meter here so I can kind of just see my levels at a glance. I can also solo tracks using the solo button. And mute tracks on the fly. Track on and off right here. And it also gives me the LED feedback for when a track is indeed muted. So overall, I did not expect this mixer to be such a great tool for performance. We think about typical mixers and we think of them for live use or maybe just routing things within your studio to go out to your monitors like your synths or something. But when you have something like the Model 12 that takes things to the next level and you can use it so cohesively with your DAW, I was thoroughly impressed. Instead of having a mixer that serves only one purpose and then just takes up a bunch of room, you have an actual useful tool that serves multiple purposes. And something that's probably very useful for people that are recording things like, say, podcasts or even live sessions like this is the SD card slot. So you can actually record a backup or just record directly to an SD card without a computer if you're not using it as an interface. So that's the Model 12 at the heart of this setup. But let's go ahead and take a look at how some of these sounds were processed within Ableton Live. So I've got a vocal loop here. Let's go ahead and solo it. This kind of acts as the initial drone. And I'm using a plugin called Ovox, which is a Waves plugin. Very useful type of, it combines auto-tune and then also some other popular vocal processing effects like vocoder. It's got built-in effects. You can hear the vocals without it. And it's got that harmonizer in there to give me like a nice big chord. I'm also processing through Waves Tune, which is a real-time auto-tune, just singing that one note as a drone. I just really love using a drone and throwing a bunch of reverb, just using Ableton stock reverb here. Let's move on to the next sound. Next up, we've got a nice little melody from the Micro Freak, and there's no way I'm going to remember what preset I used. But you can actually hear and then of course the snapping. You can hear a little bit of talking in the background there, which is kind of funny. But I love running rhythmic things like this out through delay, because as you can hear, if I strip the delay away, it loses a little bit of that nice groove to it. So I can play or snap a much simpler rhythm and then add a bunch of delay here to really add a nice groove. Followed by that, we have another vocal layer. Very auto-tuned here as well. The cool effect that's happening here is called Buffer Shuffler, which is a Max for Live effect. You can hear that it's actually chopping the voice in real time, and each of these little columns here is a step. So it divides the audio up into steps. It either plays them straight through, reverses them, or just mutes them all together. And it does that independently for left and right. So I have my settings set so that dice is on, meaning that it's constantly changing what's happening as it plays through those steps. You'll see a new pattern emerge every time it gets through the cycle. One really fun thing I like to do is fade this effect in. So if I start with the dry-wet balance down a bit, we're going to get mostly just that clean vocal sound. I can actually strip it completely away, and then I can start to fade it in. So it's kind of a way to live chop vocals without having to actually, play rhythms out on a pad or, actually chop up a sample. Kind of gives me a natural chopped sound without having to manually do it. It's one of my favorite live vocal effects. Let's roll through and go to the drums, because I think those are pretty standard. A little bit of an acoustic sound here. I get most of my samples from Splice. One of the main features, of course, is this nice heavy kick stomp on the downbeat. I think that adds a lot of weight. All the tracks are being side-chained to the kick here. So they're all going to get a little pumping sensation. They're all going to duck underneath that kick. You can probably hear it a bit there on the vocals. Next, we looped some guitar. And I'm running the guitar straight into the Model 12, and you can see here I'm using Ableton's stock effects called Amp, Pedal, and Cab. Also using a gate here to get some noise out of the signal. Few EQs, a little bit of chorus. You can see the chorus really adds a lot of character to the guitar. But again, what you're seeing here, all Ableton stock effects. And then we get into two of the MIDI instruments that I used. So I used a MIDI bass. This is a very typical MIDI Sub Bass. It's a massive patch. The bass plays a big role to guide the harmony of this track and lays the groundwork for the progression that's happening. I honestly think the chord progression in this bass line guides the real emotion of the track. Followed by another MIDI instrument, which is one of my favorite presets from the Little People sound pack that Ableton offered free. This adds a lot of excitement to the end of the track because it's the final, high-pitched kind of anthemic pad sound, or it's kind of playing the part of like a high string sound, but it's voice, so it sounds cool. Not much going on there. And of course, the last thing I didn't mention is the first thing you actually hear in the track, which is a rhythmic loop. I also have a hi-hat loop here as well. Starting with a rhythmic loop obviously allows me to be in time with the project without actually having to listen to a metronome. So everybody else hears a nice rhythmic loop, which is musical, but I'm also using it to stay in time. Overall, I try to get an organic sound, which a lot of the times means recording real instruments, recording my voice, and then blending that with different electronic elements. And using the Model 12 at the heart of this setup, I was really easily able to route a bunch of different gear, a couple mics, my guitar, my Micro Freak into this, but then also use it to perform with, to fade things in and out, to mute things on the fly, to record channels as I go, and then loop them. It really made the whole project a lot more convenient. So if you want more info on the TASCAM Model 12, check the link in the description, look into it. I really think it's a great heart of any home studio. Tascam did send me the Model 12, but they're not paying me to say this or anything. I just really loved using it during one of my sessions, and I'm trying to find ways in this small home studio that I have now to find a space for it and incorporate it so that I can get some of my hardware gear hooked up. If you enjoy live electronic music performances, tutorials, and content to make you a more productive producer, you should click the subscribe button down below. Like this video if you enjoy, and if you have any further questions or you just want to leave a comment, drop that down below as well. The engagement really helps the channel regardless, so even if you just want to say you enjoyed the video, I would very much appreciate it. But for now, thank you so much for watching. This has been TAETRO. Have a good one.